Hi, welcome back to my Texture IT channel. So in this Java interview questions session, I am going to discuss about the iterator versus streaming. So basically, this question is asked in most of the Java interviews to understand whether the candidate has the real hands-on in using the collections. Okay, so the question is about when do you choose between the iterator or streaming, like based on what, right? What is the advantage, pros and cons of using the iterator and streaming? Okay, so that is the question. Okay, so to get into solution, maybe I want to go by an example for this one. So okay, so this is a demo class. So where I am using different ways to iterate a collection. Okay, I have a collection of employees. Okay, and I'm using different ways to get the data from the collection, like a simple for loop and another way like using the iterator to get the employees and doing the sum, and the last one using the streaming. Okay, so now let's discuss about a question, right? The question is, what is the difference between the iterator and the streaming, right? So in these two methods, right, what we are doing, we are using our own iterator, right? Like we are iterating the collection, getting the employee and doing. So this is what we call as a external iterator. Okay, so this is a external iterator. So the plus of using the pro of using the external iterator is like we have more control, right? Suppose if we want to do some check, or if we want to compare two collections, right? Like comparing this collection with another collection, like we have a control in our hand, like we have an iterator in our hand. Okay, and using we want iterator, right? And using that iterator, we can do lot of things, right? Like more complicated operations, we can do it easily, right? So that is the advantage of having the external iteration. Okay, but from the other side, right, the cons of having the external iteration is it's a sequential, right? So the program has to execute one by one, right? Like if I have like 10 steps inside this while loop, the program has to execute one by one. So that is a cons of having the external iterator. Okay, on the other side, okay, the streaming, right? The streaming is using its own iterator, which we call as an internal iterator. So the plus of having internal iterator is, okay, so what we are doing here is we are just asking the streaming, okay, to add, to sum up all age of all the employees. Okay, so we are just asking them what to do. Okay, but how to do, which iterator to use, and what's algorithm, everything is the internal. Like the streaming API itself determine like how to implement the iterator, right? So the iterator is not in our, we are not owning the iterator. The streaming API owns the iterator and everything is internal, right? So that is why we call it as an internal iterator. Okay, the streaming, we call it as an internal iterator. So the plus of using the internal iterator is we have the wise code, right, where we don't want to write a sequence of code, right? And we are just concentrating on our business logic. We don't want to handle the iterator and move the iterator here, and we don't want to do. We just asking, okay, this is my business, please take care of my business, right? So we are directly focusing on our business logic, right? So that is one of the plus of having the streaming. Okay, on the other hand, the cons of using the streaming is, from the performance perspective, I'm seeing some issues. Okay, so in this example, okay, I have captured the time taken for each one, right? This one is using the shortest for loop iterator. This is using the actual iterator, and this one is using the streaming. Okay, so initially, like let's say, like I'm going with 1,000 object, a collection of 1,000 objects, right? So when I run this, okay, the sum, I'm getting the same sum. Okay, but if you see the external timing, right, the timing consumed by the first two, right, the external iterator is just 1 milliseconds. Okay, but the streaming is actually taking a 48 milliseconds, which is actually more than what the external iterator is taking, right? Let's say, like, I'm increasing it to 10,000, right? And when I run it, still, see, it is still increasing. Like, let me take it to 1 lakh, right? Still it keeps increasing, right? So that is one of the cons I am observing as part of using the streaming API. Okay, so now so to summarize, okay, we can use the external iterator if we want more control and the performance, right, is critical, okay, for a small set of data. Maybe, I guess, if we use a parallel streaming, right, let me try to use the parallel streaming here, and let me try to run it. Parallel streaming is taking more time, so the streaming actually taking more time compared to the normal one, right? Let me yeah. So to summarize, we can use the external iterator, actually the iterator, if we want more control, okay, and we want the performance on top of that, right? So in that case, we can go with the external iterator. We can use the streaming or the internal iterator when we want to have we want to ignore the iterative coding, right, the sequential coding. In that case, you can go with the stream or the internal iterator. I hope you all understood what the difference between the iterator and stream. Thank you.